right. Let's see here. Get us online. Okay. Let's see here. Just leave that there. And get our stuff up. Turn it on. There. Should grab? Switching the cable location. That does it. Oh. All right. Time to replace your lamp. Can somebody make a note on the bottom of the sign-in sheet? Time to replace the projector lamp for room. What is our room? 227, please. Thank you. All right. I wonder if that's going to go away. I really hope it will. It's time to replace your. Oh, that's going to be not. Oh, thank you. Yay. Okay. Yay. Made my day. All right. So here's your link from the last class, right, on Moodle. I'll load up the link from today when it's done. Should be a pretty fast class today. Our midterm is located here. So this is, I don't know why that's, okay. So you can just click on it right there to see it. We'll do that in the latter part of the class, okay? Because today is Thursday, I guess I should have put Wednesday, but whatever. March 14th. Anybody know, isn't March 14th the
Pi Day.
Pi Day? Is it Pi Day? It's Pi Day. What else is it? Maybe I'm wrong.
It's Thursday.
Thursday, yes. Shakespeareans here. The is it the Ides of March? Is that the 15th? Somebody look that up. I think it's somewhere around the Ides of March. Not to like make you scared about the midterm, so. Okay. And then I'll get going on your assignments for the week when you guys come back, okay? When I put food and science, I didn't mean just that I was only talking about food and food science. I'm going to talk about science also, okay? So we've been talking a lot about biodiversity. We've been talking about the environment. We've been talking about climate change. I'm going to talk about science as well when we come back, right? How reliable it is, how viable it is, right? What people are saying about science. What are some of the alternative theories that we think about some of the things that we're learning about in science, right? Okay. And we'll also talk about food, right? Because obviously that's very important for us. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So if you're wondering, you can also access your midterm by this link. Okay. That means it's publicly accessible and all that kind of stuff. All right. Okay. Let's get into the rest of our class. Now you have to remind me where we were because the other class went all the way through it. Isn't that weird? My other class has got like 14 students, 15 students. Obviously, that's a different size than our class. We got all the way through it and not a lot of comments. Also, later on in the afternoon, everybody's very, very quiet. Yeah, so interesting the difference in the two classes. Okay, where did we stop?
A little bit up.
Pardon?
A little bit up.
A little bit up higher?
Yeah.
We did the really?
Gray wolves at the beginning of class.
We did the gray wolves at the beginning of the class, and then I was gonna
It wasn't part of that. Oh, that's right. We were right below.
talked about forests. We said save a log or eat an owl. Yay!
We did the 5 countries.
Okay. We looked at forests. These.
So we were on economic and ecological services.
All right. Okay. So we were on talking. Wow, it's really noisy. Is this gonna be okay if I close it? Let me know if it gets too hot. I'm sure this noise will calm down a little bit. All right. So when we're talking about the environment and we're talking about the value of forests, somebody trying to get in? Oh well. When we're talking about the value of forests and things like that, one of the things that we notice, right, is that we have focused on what we call ecological services. We're beginning to take a look at the environment and figure out how to value it, right? One way we can do that, we can look at a forest and say, oh, wow, look at the board feet that can come out of this. Oftentimes in that kind of perspective, we're looking at nature as if it's a commodity. Does that make sense? Yeah? You know, commodities, right? Commodity tradings and all those kind of things. Okay, so we say that oftentimes in natural resource management or approaching the environment from a natural resource perspective, we look at the economic values of it in a certain sense, right? Okay, so here's a little bit about the ecological services, right? Obviously, we're focusing on the value of forests as it relates to removing CO2. We talked about the carbon trading market, right? Bless you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about how California is a little bit different and they're trying to address some of those issues that the Chicago market has been dealing with, right?
I don't think so.
Not sure yet? No, they're not. Is it exactly the same? We still have the same problem in California with the carbon market here as we do with Chicago? Does anybody know? I'd be impressed if you knew, because I'm not sure. I haven't done enough research to find out about that myself, right? I've heard that it's got a better kind of attention to the environment in that we're not just suddenly producing new credits to be able to let people pollute, right? And that was our concern about the Chicago credit market, okay? So be good to find out about that in California if anybody's focusing on that, okay? So photosynthesis, right? Stabilizing the Earth's temperatures, okay? So we think forests are very important in terms of stabilizing the temperatures, right? Remember last week or last class, we talked about a big part of Antarctica. Do you remember what that was that we learned from the news? The ice shelf is gonna, we expect it to chunk off and float away, leading to rising water, right? Okay, and maybe some association with temperatures, right? Okay. Habitat, 2/3 of the terrestrial species, right, are found in forests, from what we know, okay? And more than 300 million people. That's a lot, right? Remember, our estimates on indigenous people around the world is somewhere about 370 million people. So this is kind of interesting, these numbers, right? Economically, well, we've got a lot of raw materials that come out of forests, right? We talked about water even last time and how important that old growth forest might be to water production through an annual cycle, right? Certainly, trees can produce lots of water. Also wood, plants, animals, you know the whole routine, right? In terms of traditional medicines, we said a long time back that a lot of our traditional medicines have come from these tropical forests, upwards of 90% at one point, right? We talked about a lot of that being from the intellectual property or knowledge of other indigenous people. Okay, remember we mentioned quinine. Do you remember what quinine treats? What does quinine treat? Found in, pardon?
Malaria.
Malaria, good memory, okay? Excellent, all right. So in terms of forests, we have to be concerned with logging, but our first big clue that something is changing and going wrong is a road. Why is that? What happens when we build a road through a forest?
We cut down a lot of trees.
Cut down a lot of trees, right? And usually on both sides of that road, maybe even 100 yards in, we have to cut down trees along there too. So we end up having a buffer zone along our road of denuded areas or deforested areas. Yes? Animals have to figure out how to cross the road. And we have examples of trying to address that here, even in California. What have we done? What have we done in California to address issues of animals crossing roads? Especially highways. Overpasses, right? Where we have little corridors where they can go, right? Those are becoming famous, right? Okay. A lot of runoff as well and erosion, okay? Habitat fragmentation, of course, right? Maybe some animals won't even go past that road. Maybe they'll be stuck, okay? And maybe even complete clearing of lands. Once we got a road in there, anybody can come in with a truck and illegally harvest or what have you, right? So, now, we did see the film on the wolves, right? Know that this is one of our big success stories in restoration ecology, right? Remember, we said some people say you can never restore things. So maybe what we did was restore the ecosystem for wolves, right? And in such a way, aspects of maybe the previous ecosystem we've restored, right? I think, did we mention Keystone Predator as a term? Did we talk about that?
Yes.
Okay, Keystone Predator. So we've got the wolves as seen as a Keystone Predator. I argued in my work with terraformers that they were seen as keystone species supporting the ecosystem of wetland endangered water birds, okay, and the whole ecosystem. So we often use the term keystone in ecosystem management and things like that, and ecosystem science. But we can also use that in relation to humans when they support that same aspect in an ecosystem, okay? So, all right, Janice Alcorn, right? She's on Twitter. You can go see what she's up to, right? She's got some interesting things to say. She says, we need to take biodiversity to 2100 and beyond. We keep talking about maybe the total loss of things in the next, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, right? How old are you guys going to be by that time when the proverbial hits the fan? 30. 30? Yeah? Be in my 60s, right? Just starting to get old and sore, right? When they say we're really going to have some problems with the earth, I'm going to be in my 80s. It's like maybe 35, 40 more years from now. How old are you guys going to be? 50? Okay, you guys ready to deal with that in your 50s?
No.
No. Okay, so this is what we think is going to happen, right? Again, all theories, so I'll just speak to these ideas as theories, right? We know nothing is 100% fact in science, right? Okay, so she says, taking quite the Marxist approach, right? Remember, a lot of our education is grounded in a Marxist approach. So she takes this approach very similar to a lot of environmentalists. Hey, capitalism, what are we doing with capitalism? Remember, we talked about this. What's going on with capitalism? What's our concern about the environment with capitalism? Yes?
We overconsume and that leads to pollution.
Overconsume, pollution, all right. What else about the capitalistic system as an economic system that we mentioned prior? Part of this theory. In order to be successful, we have to, do you remember? Remember? Huh? Expand, grow, right? Grow, expand, all those kind of things, right? And if we expand and grow at 2%, what do we call that? Do you remember?
It's a recession.
Recession. How weird is that? It's like still growing. Like, how can that be a recession? I mean, recess sounds like not grow, right? Okay, but we say what we really need to be in a successful economy is what percentage of growth? 3, right? 3, okay? So she says, hey, this is part of this confusing problem here. Part of it is that You know, we've talked about the modern culture of capitalism. We've talked about other parts of the world catching up with us, right? You know, even now we're talking about our concern about places like India becoming more meat eaters, right? Have you heard this concern? Oh no, what if the rest of the world that doesn't eat as much meat as us starts eating more meat, right? Disaster. Right? What happens if other people catch up with our level of consumption? What were all y'all's footprints? How many Earths did you get? I got 3.8 with my daughter. What'd y'all get?
4.2.
4.2. Anybody higher than that? Yes? 4.7. Anybody higher than that? Where'd you get it? Travel?
Yeah.
Travel. Where'd you get it? Where was your 4.2?
Oh, that's me.
Oh, I'm sorry. My vision.
I got it from eating a lot of meat.
Uh-huh. You're from where?
Just from Orange County.
Orange County. So you're driving back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
All the time.
so is travel, is that the biggest problem here? What'd you all notice about that test? Any critique? Yes.
We're all in college, so theoretically, your travel is limited.
We're all in college. Theoretically, traveling is limited, albeit for some outliers, right? Those of us that are coming from far. Okay. So it's a different kind of time during our life, right? All right. Yes?
If every community was based around walking from place to place,
Yes.
there'd be less emissions of like.
Absolutely, right?
Driving to work.
Absolutely. Are we aware of, let's see if we can look this up. Price of gas, Denmark. Let's go per gallon. Per gallon. I don't want to see a per liter thing. That's just difficult for me. What do you think about that?
Expensive.
What's our price per gallon here?
It's like $3.
3 something, right?
Too much.
North Shore Kauai was $5. Go into Lahui and it was like $4, right? Maybe you go to Costco and it's like $3.75. Okay, right? So we paid a lot more for the 3,000 miles that we transported it, right? But wow, what do you think about Denmark? What would that cause you to do? Drive less. Bike. Yes. Okay, so they're like one of the biking capitals of the world, right? Let's see. Biking capital of the world. Did I spell that wrong? Capital, right? Amsterdam, Copenhagen. Well, you see, right? Makes sense. Okay. So if we had a different, yes?
I just had a question. Was that gasoline or diesel?
I think it was gas, right? I queried gas. I didn't do diesel. We can do diesel. You want to do diesel?
Well, the only reason I ask is because most of the people in Europe and continental Europe drive diesel cars, mainly because diesel is cheaper than gasoline compared to America. Makes sense. I don't know if it's going to be the same, but
Wow. Those are in kronas.
I don't know.
How about in dollars? Let's see if we can get that. Well, dollar. Now, which kind of dollar do you mean? This is ridiculous. Yeah, that would be hard for me to maybe do right now at the moment, but I'm sure you could find out. Yeah, and you're right. There's a lot of other places that drive in diesel instead. Yes.
But also, like, just the landscape is different. So at least in California, everything's really
We're spread out, so we need to
there's not
drive,
an
right?
option to bike to work. You're driving.
Urban planning, maybe.
I think on average, like around an hour to work.
Yeah, that's my average. Hour to work, hour home from work. Oh, suck, right? Okay. So according to Janice, she says, we have this culture of capitalism. It's forced us to consume. We haven't designed ourselves so that we can limit our consumption. And even if we did, then we'd be stuck in this weird problem of being in a recession, right? Affecting inflation and who knows what else, right? Actually, we know, but Okay. She mentions the end of nature. Glad we had some moments to talk about that, right? Previously. And she talks about this concern for capital accumulation. She says, you know, part of what we've done in our society and our culture has made it so that we need to accumulate stuff, right? Capital meaning stuff or meaning money, really, right? I mean, when we prepare you to leave this institution, we hope so much that we can prepare you so that you can afford to buy a car, so that you can afford to buy a house, so that you can afford to buy medical insurance, and then have kids, and then have those things for their kids. And you see, it's all about accumulating things and your ability to do so or your lack of ability to do so. So a lot of our focus in our culture is on that. Now, if we were solely to talk about meeting our basic needs, this is another conversation. Oh, nice, right? Good timing. Thank you. All right. Who designed the lawn cutting or whatever it is that they're doing? Are they like munching trees out there? What are they doing? Munching trees. That's nice. Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right. So, in essence, I'll try and project a little bit more. I usually don't have a problem with that. So, in essence, we're really concerned about our biodiversity. What happens with the number of species when our area gets small? Do you remember? What happens to the species in the ecosystem? What is our concern when the area, geographical area of an ecosystem gets smaller? Too small, maybe. Not enough resources to go around. And remember, the genetic diversity within the species won't be healthy, right? So the number of species aren't healthy enough to be a viable population. So then once we have one group of species that tanks, using that theory of the trophic levels, right? Remember that trophic level theory that we saw in that film? We should expect other species and other areas to do the same, right? So, global crisis. And not only that, but guess who are at the forefront of our biodiversity hotspots? Guess who really depend on the biodiversity of our hotspots, especially in forests, right? Think about those 300 million people that are all dependent on this. And then we're coming out with our 3.8 Earths. Okay, now we all feel crappy. You all feel crappy like I do? Yay! All right, right. So she says, well, little control we have on this situation. Oh no, did she really say that? Yuck. That's even worse, right? Now we're starting to catch on to this theory by psychologists talking about, you know, what's really going to happen with climate change that we experience is sadness, right? We're all going to be real depressed about what we're doing, right? Right. No. She says we can do other things. Okay, so this is her solution. Financial altruism. Remember we said, not sure if altruism exists, but whatever the case is, call it selflessness, right? So she says financial selflessness and ethical commitments. We're committed to the ethics of not just being the ones that consume the most. Some measure of equality, right? Remember we were talking about how to measure what we think is a human right? Did we talk about that? In our class, did we make the list of this? No, we didn't. Okay, let's do that. So what are the human rights that we think all people should have? Privacy? Privacy. Wow, cool. Privacy. What else? Yes. Water. Yes. As a human right, right? Okay. Nestle would agree, maybe. I don't know. We've been arguing about it in India, right? We know about that, right? Okay. What else? Yes. Education. Yay! Okay. What else? Noise-free classrooms. I'm kidding. Kinda. Anybody else? Yeah, you guys speak up.
Healthcare.
Huh? Healthcare. Yay! Or we could just say health, like good health, right? Same thing, okay? Anything else? Privacy, education, water, healthcare. Anything you want to match with water? Maybe food.
Air.
Oh, yes, clean air. Let's put in food. Come on, everybody. Anything else?
Not be attacked by others.
Pardon?
Not be attacked by others.
Safety? Safety. Anybody want to put down house? Like shelter? Okay, we'll just say shelter. Okay, so we've got kind of a list. We know it's difficult to define these things internationally, right? I mean, when we put down this list, well, what do we mean by education? Do we mean K through 12? We got that covered here. Do we have K through 12 covered in Nicaragua? No, we don't. We have K through 6 sometimes. Okay. Water. Do we mean clean water? Right? Okay, so that's another issue. Food. What kind of food? Like non-GMO food, right? Healthy food. One of the things that happened to Native Americans when they had their lands taken over and they were placed on reservations, they were given stores where they could buy their food. What kind of food did they get? Do we know? What kind of food did the U.S. government have available in their reservation stores? Filet mignon? No. What was it? Canned. Okay, so a lot of canned goods, a lot of lard, a lot of high fats, a lot of high carbs. Okay, so one of the things about food in that regard was we only provided food that gave them health problems. Right? And now we're seeing the results of a lot of indigenous people, especially in the U.S. continent, well, all over the world, really, that have been separated from their traditional diets, whatever it might have been. I think wiwish was really common around here with acorns, right? Separated from the traditional diet, we're finding they're getting massive cases of diabetes and heart disease. Not only that, but some places are putting them back on that traditional diet and getting them off insulin within like a week. Try look at the Hawaiian diet, the book called Hawaiian Diet by Dr. Terry Shintani. Okay. He takes people in the Waianae Peninsula of Oahu that have diabetes. He puts them back on their traditional Hawaiian diet of fish and poi. And within 7 days, he's getting these people off of their insulin. Mind-blowing. So when we say food, do we mean like healthy food or what kind? Okay, so another level of human rights. Forgot to do the little, all right. Privacy, that might mean different things. Although I think maybe nowadays we're so global with all our high tech that I think we agree about this one and what that might mean. Safety, we have different measures, right? But interesting that we can come up with something that we think is important for everybody, right? So, ethical commitments mean this is some of the commitments that we have as a human race, right? We believe that these things are important for every people, right? Have yet to completely define them very well, but that's what we've said, okay? All right. Public awareness and political will. Sometimes this is changing, right? I mean, I remember, I think it was somebody in this class who was talking about doing their paper on forestry. I remember who it was. Who was it, though? Yeah, right? And we talked about the fact that in forestry, you can even see that we have different administrations that will take over, Republican versus Democrat, and you can see what happens in the policy in the forest, right? You can see the expression of the political administration and the opinions in the policies of the forest. So maybe a little less politicization of that, she says, right? Okay. Impairment of traditional conservation systems. This is like what we saw about the whaling, where all of a sudden NOAA is incorporating the knowledge of local indigenous people in how to count the whales. We saw a big difference there, right? All of a sudden, we see that there are enough whales to be whaled with a certain level of quota, right? And that we haven't been counting very well as scientists. When we refer to protected area systems, we're talking about those arrangements like the box SWATs. Remember the Biosphere Reserve, Man in the Biosphere projects, those kinds of things. So experimentations, this was back in 1991. They actually have full, big, large-scale projects now in protected areas, okay? So it's not an experimentation anymore. This is what we have. Indicators and monitoring systems, okay? One indicator that we have, did we look at the carbon level? Did we do that in this class? No? We know that we have Bill McKibben and he has a website talking about carbon. Do you remember the name of the website? Anybody? No, let's find it. Okay. Oh, not that one. This one. Okay, so what do you gather from the number 350? Kind of talking about parts per million of carbon, right? Okay, and the idea about 350 was, let's see if he says it in here. Oh no, he's not going to talk about it. Okay. The idea about the 350 was, that's a measurement that we don't want to go beyond, right? We didn't want to go beyond 350 measurement of carbon parts per million. And now where are we? Global carbon. See what we say. Current global carbon emissions. Oh no, see, well that's not very, okay, well maybe that's fairly recent. Let's see where we got. We used to have a nice big thing that popped up there, but we'll see what they have here. Oh crap. See what happened? The man that wrote The End of Nature said, we can't go above 350 and look where we are. Oh no! Right? So that's one of our indicators and monitoring systems, right? We have other ones too. Water level of our oceans, right? Okay, numbers of species. Here's something that might be difficult, and I'm sorry. How many species do we have in the world? A lot. I agree. Let's try and get a number. How many we got? Let's see if they even say it. They might give a guess. Number of species in world. Okay, let's see. Global biodiversity. Are you getting confused yet by looking at the news? Okay, so officially we say there's somewhere between 3 million and 100 million species, but we're not really sure. What's up with that? What's up with that? How come? All species. Oh my gosh, did you hear about the blue, what was it? There's also a new one that was just discovered today. Let's see. The blue tarantula. I think I might spell it wrong. There it is. What? I hope I never see it, right? The blue tarantula. Actually, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Like if you like spiders. I don't like spiders. I scream. So when I tell you that the number of species that we have in this world is somewhere between 3 million and 100 billion, we're discovering new species every day. So what does this tell us about the number of species we have in the world? Easy to monitor? No. In fact, really, if I were to tell you how many species in the world we have today, I have to say we have no idea. Like, look at that spread. 3 to 100 million? Are you kidding me? Like, that's a pretty big spread, right? Right? So we've got a problem when it comes to indicators and monitoring because we have no idea really the total number of species. We can have ideas about species in areas, right? And certain ecosystem monitoring that we might set up might be geared for that, right? A park monitoring the number of, I don't know, eagles or however many. We can come up with some of these ideas. We can quarantine off a quarter-acre plot and count the number of plants in an area for diversity and stuff like that, right? So yeah, we can get at diversity figures. Yeah, we can get at some species figures. But in terms of the total number in the world, we're stuck. So a lot of these figures that we're seeing about biodiversity, you might find not everybody's going to believe it. See how we can sometimes question things like climate change when we don't know these numbers? Does anybody see how that might be the case? I could see how that could be the case. I'd be like, hey man, you don't even know how many there are. How come you're telling me that there's a 95% loss of endemic birds? And they say that, like, wow. So one thing that we need to be careful about in our monitoring and indicators is knowing the numbers, knowing the data, and knowing what it tells us. This data tells us nothing, right? But we can do maybe some smaller areas where we have biodiversity inventories, right? And get a per acre kind of idea about birds or plants or sloths, for example. I love sloths. You guys like sloths? I love them. They're so cute. If I ever give up on everything, you can find me in Costa Rica with the sloths. You know they have that institute down there. All right, moving on. Policy and legislative reforms. What would we do? Would we add a higher tax for things? Imagine legislating for, yes, let's pay more. Okay, yeah, we do that, but like, kind of maybe a bit of a struggle, but maybe that's what's needed. She argues, yes. User group stewardship. So stewardship with people that use that kind of environment, right? A lot of times we call the farmers that are in certain watersheds user groups, right? Because they're all on the same watershed. So they have to figure out how to work together to use the water resources. So you would look at that group as being called a user group. So let's make sure we support those kinds of groups instead of taking away the power of the local groups that do manage their land, right? Remember, that's kind of one of the things that we did with terraformers. We had Fish and Wildlife that was saying, yeah, we don't like how they're managing. We don't like managing with parks, so let's get them all out. We found, they had more birds in their taro fields than they had on the refuge ponds, which meant if they're user group people that are protecting their birds better than the U.S. government, we need to support that rather than kick them out, right? Okay, guarantees of basic human needs. Ooh, we're back to that list again, right? Guarantees. I like her language, but I don't know how we're going to accomplish that with all of it. Okay. Tenure rights. We're talking about land, right? We're talking about rights to land. Okay. Did we talk about the Declaration of Peasants? Yeah, we did. Did we? Yes or no? You don't remember? Okay, say no if it's the case, right? Remember, I do the same lecture twice, and sometimes there are things I touch on differently. Okay, so let's find it. Well, there's a little bit of news. That's news. I was hoping to find the actual link of the declaration. Okay, let's just go to the news about it then. Okay, here's something interesting. Just passed in December. So this is new, right? We said the UN DRIP took us 35 years to pass it. We were forever riding it, trying to come up with some rights to help support Indigenous people internationally. I don't know exactly how long this was in the writing. Ooh, is that the link? Oh, it is. Yay. Look at that. Okay, so if you go to Monga Bay for the 20th of February, you see this picture? You can actually get to it and read it. Okay? And among the rights of peasants are the rights to land. Yay! Peasants should have the right to land, right? And they have an extra qualification of peasants. They say sometimes peasants are defined sometimes as landless. Oh my gosh, what did we just do? Somebody tell me. What did we just do when we passed the Declaration of Rights of Peasants under the United Nations, international law? Yeah, you can litigate it. Okay? Might be difficult, but you can litigate it. We haven't even started with that. And one of the things that we said is, hey, you know, all those peasants, whatever we define that as, all those peasants out there in the world, those that are landless have the right to land. Who wants to be a peasant? Like, for reals. I want land. Don't you? Who wants land? How many people want land? Me, right? Me. Do you see what's gonna, like, wow, we've got some big doors we just opened. Yes? This is gonna be really interesting to see how the world litigates this, because this basically kind of says everybody has the right to land. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's pretty big. Tenure rights, due process, everybody should have the right to land. And we all need to talk, okay? She says it's going to take humility, a lot of patience. That makes sense. Going to have equal weight to the local population. We need equity, right? We can't have this world systems theory that says some get and some don't get. Can't have this 3.8 or whatever have you worlds up here and the 0.5 worlds down there or wherever they are. Going to have that dialogue between rich and poor, that occupied Wall Street bit, right? The haves, have-nots, the 99%ers and the 1%ers, she says. Got to remember, you cannot predict what lies ahead. Good point, right? The wolves, perfect example. Never would have thought that introducing wolves to an ecosystem in Yellowstone would have created a different kind of approach of the river, right? Trees even, soil, right? Must halt population growth. We talked about that, right, with the tragedy of the commons and Garrett Hardin. Establish ethical motivation. I think what we're talking here is coercion, right? Motivation, coercion. Okay. Assume ethical responsibility, especially those of us that consume a lot. Financial assistance, conservation planning. Okay. So those are her examples of what we ought to do. Here's a little bit about our price tag that we put on the environment. This was 1997, okay? That's a long time ago. We said it was worth 33.2 trillion. Interesting how we can get a dollar number. Kind of really weird too, right? Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. I think I'm going to stop there on this aspect. I'm going to remind you that when we come back, we'll talk about science. So I just banged the heck out of the whole side of biodiversity and socialism and Marxism and that kind of stuff, right? So we're going to go over science, climate denial, all that kind of stuff when we come back, in addition to foods, okay? So we'll need to get into how it is we're looking at climate science, how it is that we're melding the models. There's a new piece of news today, or this week in science. Let me see if I can find it. Climate model, Google. Climate change model maps. No. Let's see if I can get it on the news. No. Science. I think it was Science Magazine. Okay, well, essentially, I'll give you the news. Essentially, what they said is that they're trying to take all of the climate models, all the different scientists are taking the climate models, and they want to integrate it into something like Google, but it's just specifically for climate. Would you like that? They're saying that this is something that can provide a way to integrate the models and to get a better understanding of it, right? Because one of the things that we say about it is like, oh my goodness, there's so many different fields. Each one of them has a model. How do we even conceptualize putting them all together? And their idea is, well, now let's try this. So we're going to put a database search engine up on the internet, and it's going to have all that information for you. Okay, so that's kind of a new thing in the news in terms of science knowledge on climate. Okay, anybody else know about any other news on science, environment, climate, stuff like that? Any other news that came out? We know about the insects, right? Tremendous drop in the insects. We know we got a new blue spider. Yay! Right? Or at least we've had it and finally recognized it, right? Okay. All right. Let's go to our midterm. Okay. So midterm exam. It's posted on Moodle as a PDF, right? You can download it. You can open it, copy it, put it onto your own document. I had it set up so that you can submit a document instead of have to copy and paste the whole thing into a text box and have it go blah, right? I know it does that, so you don't have to do that. So I'll accept Pages, Word, PDF, Google Docs, and if it doesn't fit in your upload, you just send it to me by email. You got that? Because there's a place on Moodle where you say only accept these kinds of documents. So if it rejects it just because it's a weird one, just email it to me. Don't everybody do that. Like if it fits, fit it, right? Okay. All right. So copy and paste it into a document so you have it and you can work on it. Save it onto your computer. Remember, sometimes Moodle erases things. Let's not make it be your midterm, right? Okay. So each of these questions you're going to respond to. You don't have a choice on these. Who are the Mayagna? Yay, right? Remember, as we're going through this, I can go up here and find that and find all the references here. Remember, you can then go to the page and do Command F or, Mayagna, and find it within the page, right? You see how easy this is? Okay, so I try and make it so it's more of an exercise and work than it is testing like high pressure and make you sweat, and right? Okay. It's more about you developing your knowledge. So who are the Mayagna? What is the World Bank? Don't say they just lend to individuals, because they don't. Remember that. Remember we distinguished archaeology from paleontology? Don't forget that we distinguished that. Remember, it's all of these things are highlighted in the lecture notes, okay? If you go to Google and Google some of these things, I get the same spit out among all of you, okay? Best that you go to the lecture notes or to the text and the readings that we've done, right? What are the 3 stages of evolution according to Lewis Henry Morgan? Remember, each one is broken into 3 others, right? Okay. P-value and the study of statistical tests. We talked about scientific methods. That's down at the bottom of that lecture. Okay. Who is Napoleon Chagnon and what did he say about the Yanomami? Remember, they're in Venezuela. Don't forget that. Don't forget that he's also alive and currently active in the anthropological field too. Operational definition of good grades. Oh, crap. Did she really do that? Yep. That means you tell me what you think is good grades. It might be different, right? It might be all A's. It might be, oh my gosh, if I could just get B's, right? I'd be fine. In grad school, I was like, just B plus and above, I'd be like, cool. Not even like, grad school was tough for me. Of course, you might want to be real specific, right? Because this is an operational definition, right? Okay. All right. Your vocabulary, a few sentences. Culture, of course, right? The UN drip, NAGPRA, ethnocentrism. I was going to put up cultural relativism, but I figured, we can get it with just that one, right? Pleistocene overkill theory, right? Colonialism, self-determination. Remember, that's in relation to indigenous people, right? Okay. Oh, weird. All right. Well, it didn't do this on the document, I don't think, but got some weird margin things happening here. All right. Short essay. These two also are all required, right? Thomas Malthus spoke of the overshoot regarding population and resources in his essay on population. What was he talking about? Right. We went over all that. Explain the cases of the macaw and umulet whaling. So you've got a couple of sentences there. You'll be brief, essentially, right? You'll tell me which whale they were whaling. You'll tell me a little bit about the problems they dealt with and the other aspects of the cases, right? What is the tragedy of the commons? All of these, right, we spoke about in class. What is the approach of postmodernists to applied field work by anthropologists? I wanted to remind you to see lecture for week 4 on that. Explain world systems theory and how world systems developed from colonialism in the past 500 years. Do you remember that? I think so, right? We went into that when we talked about colonialism. We went into talking about how it really did set up our world systems, especially when you look at things like the World Bank. Don't forget that whole conversation, okay? What are Janice Alcorn's suggestions for biodiversity? What do you think of her list? Just went over that today, right? Please list the ethical concerns for anthropologists, right? Okay, now you got a choice of 2, okay? So you can choose any 2. And I'll tell you now, if you find that you can't find any of these that you like, submit to me a better question. I will update it and add it, okay? So if you choose, say, oh, these are awful. I wish there was a question about, I don't know, okay? Suggest it, okay? All right, first one. Who is Lewis Henry Morgan? What is unilinear evolution? And why did Morgan place Native Hawaiians in a stage of lower savagery? Number 2, describe the history of the UN DRIP and how it addresses human rights for indigenous around the world. You might want to go and look at it a little bit more, right? Because we didn't get too far into the DRIP on that one. Number 3, describe the development of NAGPRA as related to the Umatilla and Kennewick Man, right? Remember our film and also our reading. Has this law made progress on protecting Native American graves and remains? So that's kind of for you to assess, right? And you might say, yeah, it's made a lot of progress, and you give me your argument. And you might say, no, it's not made and you might give me your argument, okay? I'm prepared that it might be both different arguments, okay? All right, number 4, describe why anthropologists state female circumcision is one of the most difficult and clear examples of the struggle between ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. We did a whole discussion on that, so that should be like, you've got other students that even helped you there, right? Number 5, should anthropologists be involved in the military? Again, did a whole discussion on this one too, so plenty to write from there. Number 6, maybe not as much discussion on this, but we did go over it in almost every class. Why is land ownership important for indigenous people as it relates to the greater global concern regarding language and medicine? Let me just read you this, okay? I'm going to pass this book around when we're done. I just got this fairly recently. Let's see. This is fascinating. Over the centuries, indigenous people have developed a profound relationship with their lands and territories. Like, here's your answer, right? Despite this long-term attachment to their traditional lands, indigenous people are often facing forced displacement, loss of access to their ancestral territories. All right, so this whole like front paragraph is like talks right all of, well, actually the whole book. Cool book, right? So I'm going to pass this around. I'll put one of our readings from at the end of our semester we'll get from this book. So take a look at that. Wow, it's just so noisy. This is really hard. Okay, this is going to be our last stuff here. What are the common ethical issues in social research? Explain each. Okay, so earlier I said give me a list. This one would be explain them, right? So not just list. Number 8, explain the case of Native Hawaiians, the historical experience with the United States, associated legislation, don't forget the Akaka Bill. There might be another. And current state of their indigenous human rights. Okay, so essentially we've got 8 points here, 7 more points here, 15, right? 35 points here brings you to 50 points, okay? And then you've got 2 questions for 25 points each. So your essays are half of everything. Okay, so put a lot of effort and work into your essays. And we've got somewhere between 250 and 400 words. I know you all have word counters, right? So that should be easy to maintain. Any questions? Yes?
So that's number 7 there. Please list the
List. So this one, if you look, is under the short essay. So this one is just list, yeah? And then when you go into the essay part would be explain each. Yeah. Okay, good question. Anybody else? All right, yes. Paragraph forms, yeah, like an essay. That's up to you. You decide how you want to. Probably not a paragraph every sentence, right? Okay, but you can split up your paragraphs as you want. Okay, just the number of the length is what I'm concerned about the most. Okay. Any other questions? All right, so I'll be available by email. Please contact me if you have any further questions. As of now, I'm not certain I'm traveling. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is like fundraising for the anthropologists. If I'm supposed to go, I'm supposed to go like next week. It's just ridiculous, and I still don't know if I'm going. So if I end up staying, I might be available to come on campus to just like help you if you have any last questions. Okay, so if you have some questions, send them by email, and if there's a lot, then I might come in and be here for anybody that might need it. Yes?
What are your office hours?
I have none. I don't have an office. I'm so sorry. So I usually come in a half an hour before the class, and I either hang out in the religion lounge right around the corner there, or in the room at the end of the hallway to the left. So I'm usually there for like 30 minutes prior. If you need to, I can meet you on Skype visually, right? And I can give you. I'll give you my Skype. I'll put it up on the thing, so you can add me as Skype, or we can figure something else out. Okay? We can make an appointment, and I can come on campus too. Okay? All right. Any other questions? All right, go. Enjoy your spring break. Yay! Let's hear it for spring break. Do you have classes tomorrow? Are there classes on? Wait. Let me turn off. Just a second. Don't want to get